Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Women in Tech live event. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Courtney Matiska. I am the Career Success Manager at Yellowtail Tech, and I am joined tonight by two inspiring women who are in the tech field and ready to share their journeys with you. So I have Rayanne with me, who's currently at Yellowtail Tech and pursuing her journey into tech, and Tamaleo, who has already successfully started her journey in tech and her career in tech. And both of them are here tonight to talk to you about where they started and how they got where they are today. So I'd like to give you each a moment to introduce yourselves and talk about what you're currently doing, maybe what some of your goals are or your next steps. Tamalea, why don't you go ahead and start for us?
Hi everyone. My name is Tamalayo Ayadele. I finished from Yellowtail, and right now I work at Boyd Gaming Corporation as a senior system Linux engineer, and I work with a lot of Linux servers. We're just making sure that processes and workloads in the environment has a free flow. Um, we work with deployment of applications of servers, implementing processes and services, making sure that we have security for our data, for our systems as well. Um, Also, make sure that we have up to date patching, vulnerability remediations, because we do not want to allow external attacks to coming into the system. So we make sure that our security is top notch. What else do I do? Um, I also work with other third party tools. Um, just in all, just being like a doctor to our machines, uh, just to make sure that um, the environment is on a good free flow of processes, troubleshooting, difficult Linux issues that comes up. We have different Linux issues coming up. Um, you know, Also, what else? Um, I just feel like, because coming talking from a Linux administrator, it might be a bit hard to understand from a layman perspective, but it's really not something crazy. I feel it's just the regular checkups and maintenance that we all do in our day to day work wherever we find ourselves. But this is just mainly based on machines and systems. And so I feel like Linux is, it can be complicated, but it can also be just as simple um, with all the, things that encompasses it. And
Yeah,
so I feel like Yellowtail really, really helped. It holds you by the hand and helps you through all the processes. I remember my instructor usually tell me to trust the process. Uh,
mm,
so yeah, trusting the process is the key to being an efficient administrator when it comes to Linux. And just making sure that you have all your edges and your endpoint um, uh, in place, having to quickly make sure that your systems do not overpower you or uh, 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 do not get into some accidents,
yeah,
because the systems have to continue running, because if it doesn't, then the business goes down. So
sure.
so you have to make sure that you are on point in your all your deployment, your upgrades, your remediations, your account creation, your access management, your data security. They are all top notch. I think That's all I can say for now. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And we're going to come back to talking a little bit more about your journey with Yellowtail Talk specifically, but I want to go ahead and let Rayanne give her introduction, and then we'll jump into some deeper questions.
All right, I will try to give you the too long didn't read version. So I worked in a lot of different types of jobs, positions, industries, if you will. Part of it is, in adapting to whatever the economy was doing at the time. And part of it is just because I was younger and I needed to build skills and build my resume. And I think it's never really a career path. It's definitely a web. So I had to figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, strategize based on where I was. And so eventually layoffs happened, right? So I decided at that point, I don't want this to happen again. So I started to look into things that, all right, I'll get my CompTIA A+. And then, like everyone, I was like, yes, I'm going to get me a help desk job. And then the pandemic hit and that did not happen. So, did what I had to do, fell back on the other skills that I have, and, worked again until pandemic ended and another layoff happened. I said, all right, that's it. Let me pick back up where I left off with this, but go about it smarter. And so I decided to specialize. I was looking into programs because that main barrier I kept running into was, well, yeah, you've got a certification, but if you have no experience, it means nothing, basically. So that's how I found Yellowtail. And like all things I've managed to accomplish, it starts with an idea of like, this, I could do this. I know it sounds crazy, but you know what? I'm gonna take a chance on myself and like hold my beer and do it anyway. So I did, and I just kind of leapt into it and absorbed as much knowledge that I could from this experience. I got over my fear of typing code into a little black box. I no longer fear scripts and those sorts of things. And I found that just working in not just technology, but I guess working with Linux worked with how my mind is. I'm very much of a systems mindset, not just when it comes to computers, but as I said, when I worked in different industries, I was always the one really wondering, okay, so if this is my role and this is our department, how does it fit into the larger picture, and how does the whole organization work? And so I kind of translated that over into how I think about technology and work with technology. So Linux was just great for me in that regard. As for where I am now, I did obtain my RHCSA last May. I then went through internship during the summer there, as well as I got my Security Plus and completed mock interviews, and I'm still going. So I'm actually training for additional certifications. I've told some people, I haven't told others. I kind of want to wait till I'm a little bit closer and have the exam date set, so I'm gonna stay mum on that right now. But another thing that I wanted to do is I like to encourage others. So I said, hey, if you all need me as a TA, I would love to do this. So actually, it's been a really great experience being a teaching assistant and seeing others grow from no knowledge to, wow, the things that I can do with my computer now. So that's also been a really good experience with Yellowtail.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you both have already kind of touched a little bit on your journey with Yellowtail Tech, but I want to back up some. So what inspired each of you to go into tech and to, get started in that field? Tamalaya, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Well, before Yellowtail, I had no IT experience. I usually see IT as magic. So I did not have any IT experience. I worked as a security officer. So I was just bored with that. It's just a repetition of the same thing. So there wasn't no intellectual thing going on. So I wanted to do something more, you know. and I looked through all the web and see what I could do. I actually wanted to go into healthcare and all that, but
Mm,
my brother's friend was in Yellowtail, and
okay.
so he introduced me to Yellowtail. He was
Mhm.
also he was in AWS. Um, so I also wanted to get into AWS, but at that time I think it was full. So I just went for Linux. And so that's how I got into Linux. I didn't know anything about it. I just trusted myself and took a leap of faith and said I was going to do it. And so that's how I started.
Okay, so I know you said you took a leap of faith, but I think everybody on this call can agree that not only the Yellowtail Tech program, but Linux itself requires a lot of dedication, time, energy, effort, right? There's a huge commitment involved with transitioning to tech. So, Tamalaya, tell me more about, you can't possibly just fell into it. How did you how did you really maintain sticking with it as you went through?
Yeah, I know. It takes a lot. It takes
Takes a lot.
yeah, it takes a lot. It takes determination. It takes ruggedness. It takes just I don't know, just knowing that I have no option, no other
Mm,
option. This is what I want to do. I already paid for this. My money's not going to go go. I have to make use of it. So I
mm,
had to stick with it. I had to
yeah,
make sure that every day I stay on the system. I type, I work with Linux, I try troubleshooting, I read, I make sure that I do this every day because well, a day you don't touch Linux, you kind of forget. So,
right,
yeah,
right.
so I make sure it's a consistency. Um, and I also stick with Yellowtail itself because there are a lot of information out there. And
Mm,
I remember my instructor usually tell me, don't go outside of Yellowtail because you're going to get confused. Just stick with Yellowtail, trust the process, and it will get you where you want to get to. So I feel like one of the, features of getting to landing a job or, just making strive in Linux is being determined, being consistent, following the process, trusting yourself, you know.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Believing in yourself is definitely a big part of that. Ray, and tell me more about what inspired you to get started in tech.
Oh man, I don't even know if it was an inspiration, more so of a universe pushing me in this direction. But
All the
oof,
signs were there.
it's like this. It's like air. It's always been around, but I just didn't give it a chance. I don't know. So when I was a kid, I guess it started because it's like I'm going over to grandma's and here's how you work an MS-DOS prompt so you can play this game on the computer. Didn't think about it then, right? Just, okay,
Sure.
And then, later on, I ended up using this. I had this use of this old Mac. And I'm like, why does the mouse has one button? Okay, what can I do with this one button? Apparently a lot. Just figuring out how it worked. Then, I got a little older and, yeah, here's a computer. Dad dumps me in a computer. Okay, let's put this thing together. Let's see what it does. And I may be dating myself here, but if you know Mavis Beacon teaches typing, there you go. Like that one, yes, she taught me typing. I then you really started, build your skills there. And then from there, honestly, it became pretty much anything I touched. I wanted to see what it could do. What does this menu
Mm,
lead to? What does options do? And so I guess it kind of ended up being a sort of natural super user. Um,
mhm.
and then I was actually surrounded a lot by people in tech that I went to school with. And yeah, I'd hear about all the cool things they can do and just never really considered changing majors or doing anything like that. So
Yeah.
I just never, and I never really had, no one ever said, hey, you should try this too. I just didn't really think of it. And so, you go through many different experiences. Again, I was always the person where, do we need to call tech support? And I'm like, no, hold on. Click, click, click. We fixed it, or, oh, I don't know how to understand this new system. All right, I'll help you out. And the next thing you know, I'm helping everybody out.
Yeah.
It kind of just fell onto me like that.
Yeah.
And so, so for me, after seeing, all right, I see all this reliance we have on all these systems. Let me go ahead and try my hand at it and see what this thing is all about. So after that, the layoff, I'm going to say 2018, I was just like, and I was joking too. I was at my desk, what's next for you? And I was like, maybe I'll go into IT, and I did. So,
it's so funny how both of you, right, are sharing your stories, and I can't help but notice the total opposite start, right? Tamalayo, you talked about this being something that you were, kind of going back and forth about, and then all of a sudden someone said, hey, why don't you do this? And you're like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, right? And you're like, well, since I was a kid, I've been doing this, right? It's like two totally opposite ends of the spectrum, which I think is a great opportunity for everyone here listening to really hear about the diversity of people's journeys into tech, that there is no perfect time to start. There is no perfect time. There's no perfect situation, right? It's different for everybody. Everybody's journey into tech, I think, looks very different. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you have faced and some of your proudest moments in tech so far. So, Rayanne, I'm going to go ahead and start with you this time. Tell me about some of your biggest challenges.
Oof. I think the biggest challenge is getting started and staying dedicated to the path. Anyone can say, hey, I'm motivated. That's great. And that will get you started. But if you're not committed to it, you're going to end up with, excuses instead of results. I've went through a lot of different things, I'll say in my personal life that, and I understand everyone's situation is different. Sometimes life can get really chaotic. And at some point, this ended up being the thing I focused on. It's like, like Tom Leo said, like, there were no other options. This was, I burned the boats. I have to conquer this jungle now. I have to do this thing. It's the only way but through. So there, that's really, I guess, I don't know. That's kind of a generic way of thinking about it, but I don't think I've really faced any challenges that anyone who pursues anything they like to do hasn't faced. But you also have to look at it with the mindset of, there are going to be sacrifices that you have to make.
Sure.
There are going to be times where you have to deal with complete ambiguity and be comfortable with it. Yeah. You're going to get frustrated. It's going to be a lot of late nights. You might cry tears at some point. All of those things. I understood that, and I accepted that from the very beginning. I told myself, I'm happy now. I'm excited. It's a new thing. This is not going to be easy, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Right. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Get your mindset right, and you can really do it. You can do anything, just have a little audacity, some ambition, and just keep going. Also know who your community is. So with Yellowtail, we have a learning community, and I leaned on that. I leaned on everybody. And so my inspiration came from them, and they really helped me going, especially if I felt stuck. Sometimes you have to go back to the basics. So if there's something you really just don't understand, ask questions. There are no stupid questions. And if you're going to be wrong, we say to my class, be wrong out loud. Be confident about that incorrect answer you just gave, because unless you're corrected, you're not going to learn. So,
yeah, that's those are some really great insights. You had a couple of them in there. You have to make sacrifice, and anything worth the time will require some work, will require some energy, right? And we talk about that a lot because people think that the transition into tech is almost like overnight. And while there are ways to definitely, get there a little bit more quickly than a traditional career path, it's definitely not an overnight thing. So Tamalaya, tell us more about some of the challenges that you faced.
You mean while with Yellowtail or presently?
Well, it could be either, just any of the challenges that you feel like you face or that really stick out to you, either as you were transitioning into tech or in working in tech.
Mm. Yeah. Well, challenges. I really do not, because I feel like challenges would always come, right? Like that's part of life. You just have to face challenges. So it could be challenges with your personal life, and that's blocking you from, having the right mind to actually focus on Linux and do what you have to do. So that is there. The personal challenges, things happen, COVID, because I was in Yellowtail during COVID. Was it COVID or like a year after, and there were still some crazy things that we still had to deal with even after COVID. So I had to deal with that even while still with Yellowtail and trying to understand what I was learning, trying to implement what I was learning. I feel like the um the remediation for challenges would just being consistent, just making sure that you are focused on what you want to achieve. You do not let anything distract you. So even though I had to face challenges with Linux, and the craziest challenge I had to do with it was troubleshooting. I really did not like troubleshooting Linux because it drives me crazy. There's some days like I would spend like days just troubleshooting an issue, and I would just close my laptop. I'm like, no, not not anymore. No, I will still come back to it the next day, but the happiest time will be when you resolve that challenge. When you see that you found the answer. All the crazy things that you've done, it just vanishes and you feel happy, you feel validated that yeah, you can do it. So even though you face these challenges, they would always come because we are living. We'll always face challenges with either whatever we actually want to do now or something else. But specifically to Linux, I face troubleshooting challenges, but as soon as I get it done, I forget all the pain. So just see challenges as normal. It will come, it will go,
Mm-hmm.
and you would overcome it and you will be fine. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree. There are challenges in any career field that you are transitioning into, right? They just look a little bit different from one field to the next, regardless of the field that you're going into. Although I think teachers right now probably are having an easier time, but not once they get in the job, right? They're having kind of that opposite effect. So it looks like we may have lost Tamalayo, but I want to continue on. And Rayanne, you talked a lot about community. So I know, of course, we're focused on women tonight. I want to hear about not just the community at Yellowtail Tech, but also the community of women in tech, which I know is they could go together, right? The Yellowtail Tech community and the Women in Tech community, there's some overlap there. So tell me more about the community and how that helped to support you.
Okay. Well, all right. As far as the Yellowtail Tech community, I will say, and I wanted to sort of answer too. Looks like Cynthia had a question here. My cohort, we were the Ansible cohort. We were so large, they split us in half. That being said, I was in Ansible too. And I want to say we started with 40 something people. It was large.
Yeah.
Did we end with 40 something? Well, not necessarily. So that being said, that community piece there was very important, because just being able to meet with your cohort mates and have a meeting and you're all sitting there like, did you understand any of that? Nope. The one person is like, actually, that helps, right?
Yes,
You have to,
yes.
sometimes you have to have things broken down to you by someone other than your instructor. And then you start to find too, people will gravitate towards different areas. They have different affinities or different aptitudes. So some people are really good at storage. Others are better at networking. So you tend to find out where other strengths lie and where your strengths are. And that will actually help you later on when you're thinking about, all right, my path forward. Now, what do I really want to do with tech? As far as women in tech, I would say, well, Yellowtail began with, we have Paloma, right? So there's number one.
Yes.
And as well, watching the different videos on YouTube. Actually, I saw Tamalao's video. Is one of the reasons why I was like, I can do this too. And there are a lot of women in technology, and I know it's really a big focus, but for me, I never looked at my genders really having anything to do with it. It never occurred to me that women don't do this or that women can't do this. It never occurred to me. And I think that's probably the thing that has helped the most. Because if you don't look at yourself as, like, if you're in a room and you don't look around and you're like, I'm the only woman here, it shouldn't matter. Don't let it bother you. Don't let the fact that you are the only one doing this bother you, or that there aren't many, or that you don't have a role model. So become your own role model, So look at it that way. And if you really need inspiration, Grace Hopper, just look up Grace Hopper. And you have no reason to think that there were never women in tech. No. Things change throughout the decades, right? The workforce changes, and it's just really male heavy right now, and that's fine. It can be different 30 years from now. We don't know, but technology in itself is not going anywhere. So if you want to be a part of the wave, go ahead and, grab your surfboard, get your floaties, whatever it is, and dive in and join us.
I think that's a great perspective. We will find ourselves in spaces where we are the minority and we have to power forward. And I do think that community is super important. You talked about something that I think is critical, right? As you go throughout a program or even a job, right? It's applicable in a full-time career. You're going to find people who have different strengths, different weaknesses, and the more you kind of lean on each other, right? It's so easy to get caught in, I don't understand this, I don't know what's going on, but kind of coming together and finding those groups who can work together, I feel like is a great way to kind of pull through that, right? So who is, on your journey with you is an important part of it. So in terms of how you got to where you are now, what advice would you provide? Now you just said about you touched a little bit on it, right? But is there anything else in particular that really stands out to you in terms of what advice that you would provide to other women pursuing their journey in tech?
Yes. Know that if at any point you're, staring at the screen and you're like, why is it not working? That's good. You're doing it right. If you feel totally lost, you're doing it right. You're supposed to, because you're supposed to find your way out, right? Believe in yourself. Do not expect other people to believe in you. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that don't believe in you. But if you don't believe in you, what's the point? At the end of the day, it's your vision, it's your strategy, it's your goal, it's your dream, it's your thing that you want to accomplish. No one is going to see it like you do. No one is going to have a higher stake in it than you do. No one is going to put more blood, sweat, and tears into this thing than you are. So you need to be, you need to be really fully committed, and don't see it as a commitment to a thing. See it as a commitment to yourself. And if you are, I guess, in the midst of different challenges, and it's going to happen, that's part of every hero's journey. If you read, the typical story arc, that's perfectly normal. No, everything that you're feeling, going through, thinking, doubting, whatever, it's perfectly normal. But as you're learning, as you're taking in knowledge, trust that your brain has held on to it, that you know what you know, and hold yourself with confidence. Speak with confidence. If there's any source of negativity that's telling you that this is too ambitious, or I don't think that you can do that, ignore it, or do what I do and thank you for your opinion. I'm going to do this anyway and prove them wrong. Use that to fuel you to keep going.
Yeah.
There's no reason. I don't care if you have, and I say this just because I see people going through so many things, whether it's the death of a close relative, or if you have, many children, there's parents, right? Or if you're just trying to reinvent yourself and have a second career, or if you're just super young and you're starting out and you don't know what you want to do, you just know you want to make a difference. Wherever you are, just know that you're accepted, you're welcome, and bring in whatever skills you can that you can apply to this thing. And then my final, I guess, piece of advice is, yes, it is tech. Don't forget the people. There's always a human component. And I think this is where a lot of people falter. They forget about the soft skills and how to relate to each other. Yes, we can relate to the machines, but we need to be able to relate to each other as well. You need to be able to work in environments of different working styles, different attitudes, etc., and be able to adjust accordingly. And anything that you can master with respect to project management is going to help you in that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the soft skills aspect is arguably one of, I think, the more challenging parts, right? Because as people are learning tech, and I talk about this a lot, especially around our mock interviews, as people are learning tech, they forget the soft skills. They get so enthralled with the technical part of it that by the time they get to doing an interview, it's like they forget how to talk about it. It's like all of the soft skills go out the window, even if they have tremendous soft skills when it's non-technical related. There's a lot of that like freeze, And so I think that though is kind of a combination issue with also the imposter syndrome that we know is very real. And you talked about that a lot, believing in yourself and not doubting yourself, keeping yourself going. When you feel like you can't do it anyway. The imposter syndrome piece of tech can be a really big piece, and it shows up in different ways for everybody. So did you face imposter syndrome in your journey in tech?
I can't say that I have. For me, it's been one of those very much as a you versus you situation. That's how I look at it. So, if someone were to ask me to do some complex function, there are certain things where, all right, I know how I would set this up to find a solution to it. But then there's some things where it's like, oh yeah, all you got to do is this, and this. So I know what I know, and I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm not an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there are resources. There's a reason why the manual is built into the Linux software, because no, I have not fully memorized every single thing. There's a reason those resources are there, right? I haven't memorized where every file is, but do I know how to find the file I need? Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So it's been a little bit of a push and pull, but at the end of the day, it's like you're the one that's doubting you. That's the thing with imposter syndrome. You're the one that's doubting you. It's not that others are doubting you. Others are probably asking you questions or asking you to clarify and really trying to understand to what depth you know something or to what extent. But it doesn't mean that they're doubting you. Don't take that as them doubting you. Don't take criticism as someone doubting you or your abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that can be a tough part too, right? As you're learning, it's hard to take on the criticism, and the journey is a fast one, right? In a lot of ways. Of course, like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of components to it. So it's shorter than maybe your traditional educational or career path. Still definitely takes some time, dedication, but it feels quick, I think, by how much information you take in, right? And
Yeah,
it's
that
fast
first month.
paced. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, the first month is
absolutely.
when it hits you. Like a month ago, I didn't know any of this, and now I'm so excited about this tip of iceberg that I've learned. You start randomly telling your family, your friends, your coworkers about what you're doing, and they're like have no idea because you're excited about. This is how you know you started to really learn some stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw a message from Tamalayo that she was able to jump back in. Tamalayo, do we still have you?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. Yeah, thank you. All right. So I know we kind of jumped ahead a little bit. We didn't get a chance to talk with you about your experience with community. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your experience with community, whether it's with Yellowtail Tech or even in your current role. How did having a community help support you in your journey?
Oh, that it helped a lot. Um, having to brainstorm with other people that you're kind of in the same level of learning and understanding Linux. It was great. I enjoyed every bit of the community that I had, my actual cohort, and also the general Yellowtail at large. So while I was, learning, I make sure that I set up sessions with my cohort, and we talk about these things. We troubleshoot together. We talk about the interviews, the mock interviews. We question ourselves. We do all that. And the general Yellowtail, any issues that I have, I post it on there, and you always see someone to, you know, help you out. That's
Mm,
that's that's really good. So I enjoy the Yellowtail community, where I work right now as well. Yeah. Well, I kind of had the imposter syndrome when I when I started this job, because from not knowing anything in the Linux and getting a senior role, I
mm.
was shaking in my boots when I started. But I didn't show it. No one knew, because
Mhm.
my interview went really good and all that. But
That's awesome.
when I started, I was, I just wanted to stay on top of everything. Just, and I had a very difficult, colleague. Uh,
Mm.
but still, I still had to make things work.
Yeah.
So, even though you might not be lucky to find a very sweet colleague you work with, but you still have to do the job. You still have to find a way to, make things work with that colleague.
Mm.
You still have to put in the work. So the soft skill Ray was talking about, you have to have it. You have to know
Mhm.
how to um, talk through things. You have to know how to negotiate issues. You have to bring out your soft game to get things from your colleagues. So it's really important to have it. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I think that is a key thing. The soft skills, like I said, it's often one of the more forgotten things by the time someone gets to mock interviews. It's an area that a lot of people struggle with, especially on their first mock interview. But developing those soft skills, developing your, about you and your kind of elevator pitch, right, is really critical. You never know when you're going to run into somebody and have to provide, a quick overview of who you are, what you do, and maybe make a connection. So I want to pause for a moment here and see if we have any questions. I know we do have one that just came through in the comments. So someone asked from YouTube, how did the internship at Yellowtail help you during your journey in finding a job with no experience? So Tamalai, I'm going to let you go ahead and take that one.
Well, I know you guys will be asking that because if you're not in the room, you might not have an idea how it works. But Yellowtail is such a great company. Like, it helps you. You have um you like the mock interview really helped me because we had to go through 3 mock interviews, and that was before after we had to do the internship. So the internship stage, that you have to work on tickets. It's like you're already in the work space, and you're working as a Linux engineer or a Linux administrator. So you have to finish, I think we did 80 tickets, I think within 3 months. So you have to finish that. And once you're done with the ticket and you have help, the general Yellowtail Slack can help you out when you're stuck in troubleshooting or any other things that you have to work on in Linux. So those community would help you out if you're stuck in anything. And also, when you're done with your internship, then you start with the um mock interview, sorry, and that's in 3 parts. So they make sure that you're good to go. They test you if you're ready for an actual job interview, and if they see that you're good to go, then they'll push you to start putting in your CVs and start looking for interviews that you can do. So I think I kind of answered that.
Yeah, and I think you brought up something that's really important too. Yes, we do have an apprenticeship. You are going to do project-based tickets. There's, there is support, right? But we talked a lot about soft skills, mock interviews, things like that. And I think oftentimes there's so much focus on the apprenticeship, which is great. It's probably the hardest part of the program, right? Yeah. But one of the things that we really strive to do differently is prepare not just for the actual hands-on technical portion of it, right? So like I said, even if you come in with really strong soft skills in tech looks a little bit different than soft skills in, human resources, right? Or in pretty much any other field, I would say. So there's a professional development aspect of it too. It's not, I think, just the hands-on technical tickets, right? It's also those independent coaching sessions and really preparing for the job market as a whole. So doesn't look like we have any other questions in the comments. So I'm going to go ahead
we do have a few here.
Oh, did I miss
that?
that?
A little bit earlier, so I do see them.
Okay.
So for I'm going to answer. Okay, Cynthia, you had a question. Yeah. So my cohort was not only 45 people. We were like upwards of 80 or something like that. It was a large number of us, and they split us into 2 for that reason. So there were, it was a lot. So there was a big group of us, but again, everyone's journey is different. So based on how people, decided to continue through the work they put in, this is very much one of those, you get out of this what you put into it. The numbers fell a little bit, but vast majority of us, we plowed through, and we graduated in very good numbers, and all of us got certified. I did want to state as well regarding the internship. So getting the certification is a challenge, and it's a very big accomplishment in itself. But then that's where the hard work begins. So you've spent about 6 months learning this technology from the ground up, and then you take this practical exam, and now you are considered you're respected as an expert in that area. Now you can do this, but what can you do with Linux? So at that point you start examining, well, what tools do you actually know? How can I actually apply these new abilities I have? And so that's where the internship comes in. The other part about the internship that I think really helps prepare you, from a hard skill and a soft skill standpoint, is that it is very much you learn to be self-reliant. This is where you learn to sink or swim. This is where you learn to do I throw up my hands and try to ask for help, or do I make sure I've exhausted every resource that there is to try and figure this out myself? Because you're going to at any point later in your career run into something similar. May not be that thing, but a situation where you're the expert, you're the one that's supposed to be figuring out, and all these people are relying on you. So this helps you start to get into that mindset. And I think when you go through your mock interviews, and when you start looking at how you solve problems, by the time you land that role, you're more than prepared, because their confidence is not just in your ability to this stuff, but their confidence is heavily then in your ability to solve the problems and do the things that the organization needs you to do.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Those are great points, Rayanne. Yeah, I think you touched on something really important: exhausting the options, right? There are so many resources, and we do have a great sense of community, but you also have to be able to work independently in tech. And that's so important for the professional development, right? Tech is ever changing. So you have to learn some of those tools on your own a little bit. All right, and it looks like we do have another question. Does Yellowtail have any connections with certain companies that they send candidates to? So we work with, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the career success manager. So I work one-on-one with you to help you to tailor your job search, your resume, your interviewing, all of those things, and help you to really narrow down what companies are going to be a good fit for you. So we go through that process together, starting in your apprenticeship. And so we start with the coaching in your apprenticeship around some of the soft skills that we were talking about, then into mock interviews, and then to the job search stage. All right. Now, Rayanne, I want to make sure, did you see any other questions that I looked over at the top? I think that someone else had asked about landing their first role in tech. But I think we did cover that with Tamalaya, unless we missed something.
That's you landing your first Linux role. Because that's the thing. There's your first Linux role, and then there's your first role in tech. Now there's a difference, because I struggled at first, right? And it very much can be. It can feel like, oh man, I just need someone to give me a chance. It can very much feel like that. But persistence, keep applying, keep looking for roles that you can draw on the skills sets that you already have. If you can do, say, you can do 40% of the job and 60% of it is a challenge, okay, then you can still apply. Don't assume, like, you kind of want to have a role to be challenging. You want to, you want to be, what is the word? You want to have the audacity. Yes, I did apply for this. Yes, I can do this. And when you get to the interview, now I'm going to prove to you that I can do this. And honestly, once you get to the interview, a lot of times you're usually almost in there. And then you will be surprised at what other doors will open up to you. So I guess prime example, like right now, so I'm working as a solutions analyst, and I signed an NDA. So do not ask me what I actually do. But my employer is great in that, hey, there's an expectation that we upskill. And so, they say, well, what do you want to do? What are your plans? I told them, I want to be a system administrator. Okay. Now I'm training and I'm able to use my Linux knowledge and keep that going, even though that's not my current role. So
right.
It's about getting your foot in the door because tech experience is tech experience.
Yeah. And I think that also speaks to how many areas Linux kind of falls into. It's very broad. It's in a lot of places. We have a question again about how long the program typically is. So your class time is 16 weeks. And from there, you go to apprenticeship. You have 2 months to complete your apprenticeship, but it's a little bit different for everybody as there's cert prep and certifications happening in between. So I definitely encourage you to go to our website, yellowtail.tech, take a look. There's an outline there of our program, and you can schedule a call for more information as well. So it's been great chatting with both of you tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us and for representing other women in tech. This has been a great opportunity to hear more about your stories and learn about each other. I really particularly enjoy hearing both of you speak to the different aspects that we encourage so much at Yellowtail Tech, but just in your independent journeys of continuing that professional development, looking at your soft skills, right? These are some of the things you don't always hear in the conversations around transitioning into tech. So thank you both so much. And for all of you listening, please make sure that you connect with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn. I know we have some people joining us from YouTube, so you already know that we're there. But please feel free to give us a follow and connect with us. And again, schedule some time to get some more information. So thank you both, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.